We're in the studio today because I'm going to be putting together a backdrop for a product shoot. So I've got this all natural deodorant, and the scent is called Rosy Pits, which is kind of funny and I'm kind of into it. Also the packaging is really cute, which is why I'm going to photograph it. And based on what the scent is, I'm going to build this floral backdrop. So I have gone and picked up a piece of floral foam and then these artificial flowers from Hobby Lobby. So these like bouquets that I'm going to be deconstructing, and some of these single flowers, and I'm basically going to put them all into this floral foam so that it's a backdrop for this product shoot. So I'm going to do a time lapse of me putting the backdrop together, and then I'm going to come back and do the photos so you can see how I set up the lighting, and then I'll show you the final shot. So I guess we're going to get started with putting all this together. I finished the backdrop, and this is what it looks like. For a second there, I was actually worried I wasn't gonna have enough flowers to make it all the way across, but I managed. And I think this is gonna look really good. We can probably play with this now and do some photos with this actually resting on the flowers, some flat lays, and then some with it pulled farther out so the flowers go a little bit more indistinct. But I will get that set up and we'll do that as a separate video. But thank you for watching me put this together. And I hope this gives you some ideas for doing something really cool on your own.
We're back in the studio, and I've finished the floral backdrop that I made to photograph this rose-scented deodorant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to photograph this a couple of different ways, and I'm going to show you the two lighting setups that I use the most often for product photography. And hopefully having the camera over here and you being able to see behind me will help you see how I set up the lights. Now you won't necessarily be able to see um, through this backdrop because I'm going to prop it up and have the product on the other side, but you will get to see the lighting setup, and I will kind of flash up the photos that I'm getting on the side in the recording, so that'll kind of help you see what we're doing. I will do a couple of shots starting out with this as a flat lay. So I'm going to place the deodorant on top of this and photograph it down, and then I'm going to do a couple of shots with the backdrop up and the product sitting in front of it. So let's get started. You might not know this about me, but I am a lazy person. And my general rule for everything is to keep it as simple as possible. So I actually like to start out with a one light setup. So I'm going to be using this big guy behind me. Now this is a continuous light, which means that it's always on. It doesn't kind of flash. And I have the largest softbox that I have on this light, because the rule is the larger the light source, the softer the light. So by using the biggest light source that I can, I'm going to get a really nice, soft, even quality of light, kind of like you would get from a window. Now, I've actually rotated my backdrop and placed the product on it. So I'm going to bring this light over here, and you'll see me kind of tweak it and move it around, because great thing about a continuous light or a light that's on all the time is that what you see is what you get. So I can actually turn it on and see how it's affecting my setup. The other great thing about this light is it has this little power box connected to it, and I can use this dial to crank the light up or down. So this is really handy if you're using multiple lights, and we'll get to that in a second. But for this one, I'm actually going to crank this up quite a bit because this light is kind of far away, and this softbox kind of cuts the power from the light a little bit. So I want this to be really bright, soft, and even. And you'll see I tend to get myself into weird contortion positions where I am kind of fighting with my light stands and my lights, which is normal, at least for me. So my camera has actually got this nice little flip up screen. I don't use tripods all the time. I know that's kind of sacrilege, but using this flip up, it does let me um, see how I'm framing my photo. And I actually have my camera set to aperture priority. So I've set my aperture at the lowest it'll go, so 2.8, and my shutter speed is currently 100th of a second, and my ISO is 500. That looks pretty good. Now, one thing I am noticing, because this is a round object, it is shiny plastic, that by having this light directly above, it is creating a reflection that's happening like in the center right here where the text is. Now, I might not want that, but I like the quality of the light. So this would be where you would move this off to the side. And if you're going to stick with a one light setup, you bring in a reflector. I'm going to try not to make so much noise. Okay, I'm going to take a quick shot just to see what this looks like. With this light moved over. This might need to come over actually even a little more. Okay, the reason why I did that is I brought this down lower because where it was up high, I was still getting some of that reflection coming over the top. I'm still actually getting a reflection here, but it actually looks really kind of cool. Now, if you don't like reflections, reflective surfaces are literally the hardest things to photograph. You have to figure out where it's coming from and block it. So I can actually put a reflector here and pull it around so that it's changing where the reflection is happening. And this is where the having continuous light comes in really handy, because I can actually see, if I put my face where my camera is going to be, what that is doing. And this is also another benefit of having a really big light source, is that the light is still wrapping around this styrofoam, and I'm not blocking too much of it. gonna turn the power up a little bit since it's having to work a little bit harder. Okay, so that's that. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch this so that I am photographing this sitting on the ground in front of this rather than laying on top. Here we go. Let me grab my thing. I'm going to put this. We're going to play with the distance between the backdrop and this and me with the lighting. So we'll get some different looks that way and you'll see that. I'm going to raise this just a little bit. And again, we're going to start with one light and we're probably going to bring in another one. But this will just give us a place to start. And this is where I start anyways, with really kind of flat, even lighting and kind of go from there. And again, I'm at f2.8 and I think the background is going a little too blurry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a smaller aperture to have that background show up a little bit more. And it significantly reduced my shutter speed. You could hear it slow down. So I know if I should put this on a tripod and just let the shutter go slow. But for class, I'm just going to increase my ISO and see what we get. Now, one of the things that I'm noticing is that there's a little bit too much of this green paper showing, and I kind of want more of the flowers. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this closer and see if that doesn't fix. Okay. It's still not perfect, but then again, you can you can get really insane about this and get really nitpickety and be here forever. So sometimes you just gotta know when to fold them. Um, so what I am gonna do is I think I'm gonna change up the lighting a little bit because this is super soft, really basic. And I want, I think, maybe a little bit more drama. So something that has a little bit more directionality to the light. So I'm going to turn this light down a whole bunch. So there's just kissing it from this direction. Basically, this is turning into a fill light. And I'm going to bring in another key light that's going to be more contrasty, and that's this guy. So, uh, the reason why this light is going to give me more contrast than this one has to do with the modifier. So this modifier is smaller than this one. And if you remember, the larger the light source, the softer the light. So because this is much smaller, the light coming from it is more directional and will create more contrast while still being kind of soft. So I'm going to turn this back on and we're going to take an example photo. Oh yeah, it's creating some drama. Now, I'm actually going to bring this forward just a little bit because this light is actually casting a shadow, and I really like how it looks, so I want to see more of that shadow. But it is creating more of a shadow here on this side of the product. So again, I'm going to pop in with my favorite guy and just put this right here. So I'm sorry to block your view a little bit, but it is just going to fill in the shadow on the side of this product. But I still get the drama and I still get the shadow, but it looks a little bit better on the packaging. Okay, there we go. Um, Of course, you can get really crazy with the styling and really start kind of building some stuff up. If I was going to do this for real, I don't like how plain this paper is. So I would almost start putting like greenery and leaves and other things to give it more depth here in front. And that'll just help fill up the space because the background has so much texture and depth, and then you have like nothing on the ground, and it just doesn't quite mesh for me. So, this is kind of how I do my lighting. When I'm using two lights, one of them is the key light or the brightest light, and the other is the fill. And I just kind of move them around the product based on um, what looks best. So you really just have to play with it. You have to set it up, take a few photos, move it around, zhuzh it, and take a few more until you get something that looks good to you. So I hope this helps, and I hope it gets you excited to do something else.